I want to start my story where this X is up here. It's a department store that's on the corner of Castlereagh Street and Market Street in the city. You might know it. It's pretty famous. It's a store called David Jones. In July 2011, I found myself in the accessories department of the menswear section in David Jones, but I had no idea how I got there. For other customers that were walking around, they might have thought I looked a little bit dazed and confused. But on the inside, I was feeling all sorts of crazy. What snapped me out of it was a phone call, and I don't remember the content of that phone call, but what I do remember is how I felt. I was physically shaking. My voice was all over the place. I'm still very grateful for the fact that I was wearing clothes. At least I did something right that morning. But what I started to realize is, how did I get to this place? Because I didn't just wake up one morning and feel this way. And it's the closest I can imagine that someone feels when they're coming on the verge of a nervous breakdown. And so I started to look back and think, how did I end up here? What were the indicators? And what I've come to discover, I've called this experience an energy crisis. Right? For me, I call it an energy crisis because it wasn't one of the extreme versions of mental health illness that you hear about so often. I wasn't suicidal. I wasn't depressed. I wasn't anxious. I was just incredibly depleted. And so I've called that an energy crisis. And the things which were the warning signs for that energy crisis, I call energy crisis indicators, or ECIs. Now, ECIs are a lot like STIs, all right? So if you think about STIs, they're a bit nasty, right? They can sneak up on you. They often go undetected. I see you're all a little bit squirmish now. STIs might be striking a bit close to home. Wouldn't know about that myself. But ECIs really are infecting many of us. In fact, it's highly likely that you're infected. And so I want to share with you 7 ECIs for you to be aware of. And just start to tick these off. Hopefully you're only going to tick off a couple, but statistically you will have multiple ECIs. The first will be physically unhappy, right? And this is not about being a supermodel or being a triathlete. It's just about your body not feeling like it's in best working order. The second, you might be feeling unfulfilled. You're waking up in the morning, you're just not really excited about what you're going to do that day. The third, you could be lacking direction. There's so many options that you have, but where do you start? All right? If you're feeling depleted, everything can feel very overwhelming. The fourth is negative self-talk. The things that you'll be saying to yourself that you would never say to another person, but you'll say to yourself quite loudly and quite often. You'll be waking up tired, right? Starting the day already feeling like you're behind, that sleep didn't matter. You're stressing at the small stuff, like you're really, really pissed off when someone doesn't change the toner in the photocopier, or your favorite barista's not there in the morning. And the final one, you might be feeling isolated, disconnected. For me, this was massive. I felt very alone going through this. I had a very high-profile role. I was responsible for a $9 billion brand. I had a $25 million a year marketing budget. There's no way I could go back to work and say, guess what? I was just wandering around David Jones this morning. I have no idea how I got there. So what happens when these things get left unchecked? Because these are energy vampires on us. They're sucking the life out of us. So what happens if they go unchecked? We end up feeling unwell. We have a huge amount of unwellness. And when these become community issues, we start to see something which is actually very, very worrying. And that is an epidemic of epidemics. Australia right now is experiencing an epidemic of epidemics, an epidemic of unwellness. We're physically unwell, with epidemics of obesity and sleep deprivation. We're mentally unwell. 8 people killing themselves every day. Huge amounts of stress impacting us, with over 35% of the population experiencing significant amounts of distress. We're emotionally unwell when we look at the most dysfunctional versions of our relationships, where we have epidemics of domestic violence and child abuse. 1 woman killed a week, over 5,000 call-outs for domestic violence every week. 1 million children witnessing this. And finally, we're spiritually unwell. This chronic lack of fulfillment, so many of us questioning why we do what we do and not loving what we do at all. The equally shocking part of all of this is the cost to the economy is $266 billion a year, or 16% of the Australian economy. Imagine what we could achieve if that money was spent elsewhere. We are facing our human energy crisis, and we need to start to ask ourselves why this exists. Why are we so unwell? Because when you think about it, we've actually got more information than we've ever had at any other point in human history about how to be well, about how to be energized, and yet we're not. So where do we start? Well, the place we start is by looking at the definition of wellness to start with. Wellness has 3 components to it. The first is that it's preventative. It's about preventing illness in the first place, stopping it from happening. The second is that it takes effort. You cannot buy wellness, you can buy happiness. We actually have to do stuff to be well. And the third is that it has to be holistic. So it needs to look at all of us. It needs to look at our physical health, our spiritual health, our emotional health, and our mental health all together. Now, this holistic thought was something that was very relevant to me in my situation, because this was me back in the day. So I spent 16 years in the fitness industry, teaching all over the world. If anyone's got a Michelle Bridges DVD, I'm on 4 of them. They might have been in your lounge room already. So I should have known how to keep myself well. I'd spent 16 years of my career in this industry, but what I realized was that my knowledge was incomplete. It was very focused on the physical aspects of wellness and less so on the others. And so I really need to work out, what didn't I know? Why had I ended up in David Jones? And it all started with a conversation with a stranger around one single thought. That stranger was a man called Kamal Sama. You might know him, since he was just talking. And he talked to me that day about managing my energy and not my time. And for me, that just made so much sense. With my background in fitness, it was all about energy. I knew how to energize people. I knew how to create that. So how could I do that for myself? Energy is such a simple concept too, because energy is intuitive to all. I can ask you immediately after you've had any experience, right? Whether that was going to the bank, spending some time with your friends, having a meal, or just sitting quietly with your thoughts. And if I ask you, did that experience energize you or deplete you, you'll just know. You won't know why, but you'll just know that it was one of those 2 things. It's very rarely in the middle. So what we need to do is turn that intuition into intelligence, right? To understand why things impact us the way we do, so that we can make better decisions. Because ultimately, it's the quantity and quality of energy that we have in our lives that will determine our success. We can't achieve stuff that we don't have energy for. So I want you just to think about what matters to you. What would you like energy for? It's going to come back to that quantity and quality about how successful you feel about the stuff that matters to you. Whether that's your family, your relationships, your job, the community. You're going to need energy for that. But in order to do that, of course, you have to save yourself first, right? We can't give energy that we don't have. And therefore, how do we increase our own quantity and quality of energy? Well, the way that we do that is by developing a skill that I call energy intelligence, or ExIQ. Now, energy intelligence, ExIQ, is a skill just like any other skill. If you were going to learn to surf, you'd need to know where to put your feet on the board, you know where your center of gravity is, what time to catch the wave, when to stand up. Right? You need to know what to do first. Once you know what to do, then you, right, over and over again, falling off, being judged by the other surfers out there, practicing over and over again until you get good at standing up. When you're good at standing up, then you can do all sorts of tricks, right? And importantly, you can teach other people how to stand up. So we think about energy intelligence, ExIQ, the same way. And in doing that, what we're doing is making wellness practical, teaching the skill of how to be well. Because the reason we're in this place is that we've never been taught how to be well. Now, ExIQ has 4 components to it, 4 strengths. The first is fuel. We're energized when we're conscious of food, of exercise, of sleep, and of how we recover. Right? And we have the most influence over those things. We can choose how we feed ourselves, what time we go to bed, unless you've got little kids. That can be a little bit of a challenge. Right? Whether you go outside for a walk, you can influence those things. Without fuel, there can be no fire. Fire's what really lights us up. Right? It's really getting out of bed and knowing that you're using your strengths that day towards something that's meaningful to you, whether that's humble or huge. What stokes your fire is feeling. Feeling is about our relationship with ourselves. We're energized when we have a compassionate, loving, generous relationship with ourselves. And that is the basis for having healthy, energizing relationships with others. And the final energy intelligence strength is focus. Because in order to create more energy, we need to know where to make decisions. Right? So focus is how you create space for fuel, for fire, and for feeling that adds the most value to your life whilst you remove the energy vampires. So how do you get to know your ExIQ? Well, our research and our data is showing, I can tell you right now where you probably sit on average, right? So from the data that we've collected, this is where Australians sit. We asked them 2 versions of a question. The first is, where are you today? The second is, where would you like to be? All right, so it's about closing that gap. This is where we're at today versus where we'd like to be. We're at 65% of fuel, 76 in terms of fire, 67, and probably tellingly, because we don't really know what to do next, 53 when it comes to focus. What that means in total is that we have 65% of the energy that we would like to have. So how do we close that gap? Imagine what that would be like if you closed that gap when you think about what matters to you. What would you achieve personally, and what would be achieved collectively to change those epidemics that we're experiencing today? So developing your ExIQ is very simple. As I said, it's a skill, just like learning to surf. And what we've seen is because it's so practical, in our pilot programs, we've seen people increase their energy by 30% in as little as 6 weeks. Imagine waking up tomorrow with 30% more energy. How would you be experienced? What would you achieve? How would you feel? The other thing we've discovered is the people that get the greatest results the most quickly are doing something that we call life hacking. Because the highest score we've got so far is 134%. That one was really geeking out on energy intelligence. So life hacking is as simple as combining 2 of the Fs, or 3 of the Fs, or 4 of the Fs into one experience. And something really magical happens when you do all 4. when you combine all 4 of those energy intelligence strengths, there's one word that people use, and that word is joy. Who doesn't want more joy in their lives? Yeah? So, are you up for doing some life hacking right now? Yes? I'm not sure. Are you up for doing some life hacking right now? Yes. All right. Well, we're going to combine 3 of the F's right now. All right? Very quickly, we can lift your personal and collective energy in this room with one simple act. I need you to stand up. What we're going to do is we're going to combine fuel, feeling, and focus. We're going to do a practice. Right? And I call it a practice because science shows us that our brains are like magnets for the negative, but Teflon for the positive. Right? So we have to practice this stuff. We're going to start by practicing gratitude. So I want you to think about something that you're grateful for. It's scientifically impossible to feel any of those anxieties or fears or sadness if we're practicing gratitude. Think about something that you're grateful for right now. Now just notice where that feeling is in your body. Right? Breathe into it, let it expand a little bit. Just let your arms come down. Right? Keep breathing into that feeling, and I want you to just move your right shoulder forwards and just twist a little bit, and your left shoulder. And your right shoulder, keep that feeling. Your right, and a little bit faster. A little bit faster. A little bit faster. A little bit faster. All right, keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. All right, so we just lifted our personal and collective energy in like literally 10 seconds by doing shimmy a day. And this is what I want you to take away today, is finish your day thinking about the things that make you shimmy. All right? It might be a little shimmy or a big shimmy. Right? If it's big, it makes your voice go funny. Right? But finish your day that way. It's a great way to start to build your energy intelligence. Thank you.